In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills, there was a small, forgotten music shop. It stood on the corner of a cobbled street, its once bright sign now faded and chipped. Inside, the shop was filled with dust-covered instruments, each carrying whispers of songs long forgotten. Among them was an old violin, its strings frayed, its wood dull and cracked. No one had played it in years, and it had come to symbolize neglect and decay. The shopkeeper, a kind soul with weathered hands, had tried to sell the violin countless times, but no one wanted it. "It's too old," they would say, shaking their heads as they chose shinier, newer instruments. Despite its imperfections, the shopkeeper couldn't bring himself to throw it away. He believed that even old things had a purpose, waiting for the right moment to shine. One gray afternoon, as a soft drizzle painted the village in hues of melancholy, a traveler entered the shop. The traveler was unassuming, with clothes that spoke of a life on the road. Eyes scanning the room, they lingered on the old violin. "What about this one?" the traveler asked, their voice gentle but firm. The shopkeeper hesitated. "It's not much to look at and it's out of tune. Perhaps you prefer one of the newer ones?" The travelers shook their head. Sometimes, the most beautiful melodies come from the instruments no one believes in. Reluctantly, the shopkeeper handed over the violin. The traveler paid a modest amount and left without another word. For weeks, no one saw the traveler, but faint notes of music began to drift through the village. The sound was raw at first, like a voice regaining its strength after years of silence. But with each passing day, it grew richer, more profound. It wasn't long before villagers began following the music to its source, a clearing near the edge of the forest. There, under the shade of a massive oak tree, the travelers sat with the old violin. The notes they played seemed to tell stories of joy and sorrow, love and loss, dreams and heartbreak. The music was unlike anything the villagers had ever heard. It was as if the violin itself were alive, pouring out emotions too deep for words. People who had once dismissed the old violin now marveled at its beauty. They brought their children to listen, their elders to reminisce, and even those burdened with grief found solace in the music. The village, once quiet and unremarkable, became a place of gathering, united by the melodies of the old violin. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the music stopped. The travelers stood, their face peaceful yet resolute, and placed the violin carefully on the steps of the music shop. Without a word, they disappeared into the night, leaving the village to wonder about their identity and purpose. The shopkeeper found the violin the next morning. It was no longer dull and broken. The wood shone with a warm, golden glow, and the strings hummed softly as if they still carried the music of the traveler. From that day on, the violin was no longer for sale. It remained in the shop, a symbol of transformation and hope. People came from far and wide to see it, to hear the stories of the traveler who had brought it back to life. And the villagers learned an invaluable lesson. Sometimes, what seems worn out and forgotten just needs someone to see its worth, to believe in its hidden potential. Because in the right hands, even the most broken things can create something extraordinary.